Yes, the channel is PSSB, Physical Sciences, with me, Richard, here. This question says, consider the following equation below. Consider the following equations below. Let us look at the equations. Ammonia gas plus water. Hydrogen chloride gas plus water. Hydrogen chloride plus ammonia. Okay. Then the question says, rewrite, complete, and balance each of the equations above using chemical symbols and identify the conjugate acid-base pairs. So how do we go about this? Okay, we have to remember, okay, what is ammonia? Ammonia is NH3. It's a gas. And we are adding it to water. Okay, what are the products? Now, I need to tell you that if you are going to win in this category, you need to use Bronsted-Lowry idea. And in this case, you have to know that when water is present, ammonia is basic. Okay, we will explain this when you become advanced, that ammonia, when it bonds with 3 hydrogen, it has lone pair present, which can accept a proton. So most of the times, when in the presence of water, it accepts a proton. Okay, so what happens is that a proton originates here and is donated here. Okay, so when that one happens is that ammonia gets a proton, so it becomes an ammonium ion. And what happens to water after loss of proton? When water loses a proton, what remains behind is OH minus. So these are the products we have. Now I need to remind you that according to Bronsted-Lowry, a species which donates a proton is an acid. We have to remember that Lowry-Bronsted said an acid is a proton donor. And a species which gains electron is a base. Now, you have also to remember that when an acid loses a proton, it becomes a base. So, which means that this one is a base. And we need to know that when a base gains a proton, it becomes an acid. So this is an acid. Okay. So with that, what can we say? We can identify the conjugate acid-base pair. We need to know that the difference between the conjugate acid and its conjugate base is 1 H. A conjugate acid has an extra H, which is missing in the conjugate base. So let us look at here. The difference between what we have here and this one is 1 H. So in other words, these two are conjugate acid-base pair, where this is the conjugate acid of this, or where this is the conjugate base of this. So let us analyze these two. You have to remember that the difference between this one and this one is 1 H, which is possessed by this. So what does that mean? That means that what you have here and what you have here are conjugate acid-base pair. What this one is a conjugate base of this acid. And what you have here is a conjugate acid of this base. Yeah, and then you come to this one, hydrogen chloride gas plus water. Okay, what do we have here? We have hydrogen chloride. Okay, and we are adding water. You need to know that when these two are together, there is a tendency that this one is an acid and this one is the base. So what you have to know that to win in this case, to make yourself easier, you need to use Lolly Brosted idea. It says an acid is a proton donor. So this acid will donate a proton here. So when water gets a proton, what does it become? It becomes H3O+. This species is called hydronium ion. And when an acid loses a proton, what remains behind is this one, chloride ion. Then I need to remind you that this is the acid and this is the base which gained a proton. But when an acid loses a proton, it becomes a base. So what you have this side is a base. And when a base gains a proton, it becomes an acid. So when you come to identify conjugate acid-base pairs, what do? You need to know that the difference between an acid and its conjugate base is 1H. Or the difference between a base and its conjugate acid is 1H. So when you analyze these two, the difference is 1H. So what you have here, this is the pair. The hydrogen chloride and the chloride ion are conjugate acid-base pairs. Okay, then when you look at these two, the difference is also 1H. So these two are also conjugate acid-base pairs. Then you come to 3, hydrogen chloride plus ammonia. Okay, what do you have here? You have hydrogen chloride plus what? Plus ammonia. Okay. Now you need to know that in the presence of these two, the hydrogen chloride is the acid and ammonia is the base. And like I said, to win in this scenario, you need to use Brosted Lolly idea. What do they say? An acid is a proton donor and a base is a proton acceptor. So what happens here is that this acid donates a proton to this base. So when ammonia gains a proton, what happens? It becomes NH4+. It was neutral, so it becomes positively charged. And when the acid donates a proton, what remains behind are the chloride ions. Now, like I said before, this one is the acid which donated a proton to this base. Now you need to know that when an acid loses a proton, it becomes a base. So what you have this side is a base. And you need to know that when a base gains a proton, it becomes an acid. So this is our acid. Now when you come to identifying acid-base pair, what do? You need to know that the difference between an acid and this conjugate base is 1H possessed by an acid. And the difference between a base and this conjugate acid is 1H possessed by an acid. So an acid has an extra H. So when you look at between these two, the difference is 1H here, this one. So these two are conjugate acid-base pairs. And when you look at these two, you'll find that this one has an extra H which is missing in this one. So the two are conjugate acid-base pairs. So that is it. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time. The channel is PSSB, Physical Sciences Silver Bullet, with me, Richard, here. We remind you to subscribe, to like, to share, to comment. And also we need to remind you that Physical Sciences Silver Bullet is a channel which deals in physical sciences, grade 12, 11 and 10, and natural sciences, grade 8 and 9. We recommend that when you are using the channel, don't go to video, go to playlist and click the material which belongs to your level. Grade 8 and 9, just look for natural sciences grade 8 or natural sciences grade 9. For grade 11 and 10, just look for physical sciences grade 10 or physical sciences grade 11. For grade 12, each chapter is presented independently. Just look for the chapter of your choice and click it. You'll have all the material you need. With that, I would like to say thank you. Stay blessed. See you next time. Bye-bye.